What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I got 3 envelopes that I just recently got back that I'm going to open up. All 3 of these have something in common because they are all postmarked from North Carolina. Actually, I take that back. One is postmarked from Orlando, Florida. However, I know they all have one thing in common, and that is racing. So let me just get the first one out, and I will show it to you. And the first success is from former driver and owner DK Ulrich on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And DK has quite the jacket on right there. Very symbolic of a lot of nations throughout the world, I guess. That would be like the perfect United Nations jacket or shirt or whatever that is that he's wearing. Also quite colorful there with his chilling out Hawaiian looking shirt. So anyways, let me tell you about DK Ulrich. So DK Ulrich, which stands for Donald Keith Ulrich, is a former driver and owner in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. As a driver, he had 16 top 10 finishes in 273 starts. His last race was in 1992 after he came out of a 5-year retirement to compete. His first race was in 1971 in the Maryville 200. He would compete the following year also in the NASCAR Grand National East Series in Nashville. After stepping away from racing as a driver, as a car owner, he fielded cars for many years for young drivers such as Mark Martin, Sterling Marwin, Rick Mast, Greg Sachs, Davy Jones, Barnoe Jones, Morgan Shepherd, Tim Richmond, and Ernie Irvin. As a driver, his best finish was 4th place in 1981 at Dover Downs Speedway. Another neat little trivia fact about Don Keith Ulrich, or DK Ulrich, is that he is the stepfather of actor Skeet Ulrich. And if some of the younger viewers may not know who Skeet Ulrich is, he is probably best well known as the bad guy in the original Scream movie back in the 1990s. Well, one of the 2 bad guys, I should say. So I did not know that Skeet Ulrich's stepfather was a NASCAR driver. I was completely unaware of that, and owner, technically. So very happy to add DK Ulrich to the collection. These cards are pretty common to find. They're not super rare or anything like that. I just had to happen to have 4 different ones laying around, and I decided to look up his address, and I got a success from him. So very happy to get those. Alright, so this next one is postmarked from North Carolina, and it is indeed from former NASCAR driver Wally Dallenbach Jr. on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And Dallenbach is obviously known as a driver, but as of this last century, in the 2000s, he's been more well known as a broadcaster for the NASCAR events. So you probably have heard him at one point or another, or seen him on television while he's broadcasting one of the major NASCAR events over the past 20 years almost. Dallenbach was born in Colorado. He grew up in the Denver area with his father, Wally Sr., and his mother. After graduating high school, he left Colorado for North Carolina to start his racing career. He began his pro racing career in the SCCA Trans Am Series. Immediately, he won the Rookie of the Year title in 1984 and followed that up with 2 Trans Am championships. The first one in 1985, driving for Jack Roush in the Mercury Capri. This made Dallenbach the youngest Trans Am champion at the age of just 22 years old. The following year, Dallenbach joined the Protofab team and drove their Camaros to another championship. The success garnered him an invitation to race in the International Race of Champions in 1987. Dallenbach followed up those accomplishments by winning 24 Hours of Daytona 4 times and the 12 Hours of Sebring 3 times. By 1991, Dallenbach was ready to make a jump to the world of NASCAR, racing in the Winston Cup Series. He made 11 starts that year, driving one of Junie Donlavey's Fords. In 1992, former boss Jack Roush called Dallenbach again and asked him to drive as a teammate to Mark Martin in the number 16 Ford. He drove for Roush during the 92 and 93 seasons, finishing second at Watkins-Glen's in 93, fifth at the 91 Watkins-Glen's race, 7th at 1996 Sonoma, and 10th in the 93 Daytona 500 and 93 Talladega 500. In 1994, Richard Petty put Dallenbach in the famous number 43 Pontiac, which I believe that's what he's right there. He was the second driver other than Petty to drive the number 43. Dallenbach finished 4th at Sonoma, 8th at Talladega, and 10th at Dover, but was released partway through the season. 1995 was an up and down year for Dallenbach, as he did not have a full-time sponsor. However, one race deal with Bill Davis in the number 22 Pontiac almost got Dallenbach his first Cup win at Watkins-Glen's, but he fell in closing laps to finish second. The following year saw Dallenbach jumping around different rides. He was considered as one of the best road course drivers and was often recruited to drive at such tracks as Sonoma and Watkins-Glen's, as many drivers struggled on these more demanding tracks. In 1996, he drove the number 15 Ford for Bud Moore Engineering, finishing 6th at Daytona 500, 3rd at Sonoma, and 10th at Watkins-Glen. Then he drove the number 46 First Union-sponsored Chevrolet for Felix Sabates from 1997 through part of 98, claiming a 10th place finish at 97 Watkins-Glen's. Later in 98, Dallenbach stepped in the sub for Ricky Craven in the number 50 Chevrolet for Hendricks Motorsports. The combination worked out well, earning 3 top 10s, and Dallenbach signed on to drive the number 25 Chevrolet for 99. It resulted in his best position in the standings of 18th with 6 top 10s. In 2000, Dallenbach joined the new Galaxy Motorsports and drove the number 75 Ford. It was a difficult season with him, with a best result of 9th at Watkins-Glen. In addition, promised sponsor opportunities fell through, leaving Dallenbach without a ride before the 2001 season was to begin. In fact, Dallenbach was listed in several season preview media sources despite never attempting a single race that season. Instead, he would sub for Joe Nemechek in the Pocono event in 2001 for his final race. Without a sponsor, Dallenbach took up TV commenting in 2001, covering the NASCAR races for NBC and TNT. And you can still see him to this day broadcasting major races for those networks. Another neat thing about Mr. Dallenbach, aside from his father being Wally Sr., his wife is actually former driver Robin McCall. And to summarize Dallenbach Jr., he drove for basically every major racing motorsport company in the 1990s. I mean, he was with Petty, he was with Bud Moore, he was with Sabates, on down the list. And this guy had an opportunity to race with some of the best well-known and successful franchises in the history of the NASCAR sport. So very happy to add these to my collection. Alright, so this final one that I got back is postmarked from North Carolina, and I know immediately who it is because it's a thinner envelope, and this individual has shown up on a lot of people's channels with TTM successes, and this is King Richard himself on one, and a second makes 2, and I'm very happy to say that I needed both of these for both of my sets. I was going through my second McDonald's set and did not realize that I did not have the Petty signed, which really surprised me. So as you can see, he signed a nice silver Sharpie. Kind of wrote across his face, which not my biggest preference when athletes do that, but hey, this is King Richard, I'll take it. But more importantly, I added another one of my 2002 Press Pass Vintage, and I added the best one, hands down, out of the set, signed. So I'm very happy to add both of these to my collection because I'm trying to collect both of these sets signed. So very cool. Alright, so I'm not going to talk too much about Richard Petty. Anyone who follows NASCAR definitely knows who this gentleman is, because I could do 30 minutes just talking about Richard Petty's career. So I'm just going to basically say to some of the younger viewers that may not know who Richard Petty is, that this is the Michael Jordan, the Tiger Woods, the LeBron James, the Bryce Harper, whatever you want to equivalent to a current or recent superstar. This is the person for the sport of NASCAR racing. This person put NASCAR on the map, more or less. He's one of those pioneers of the sport, and he is such a great fan-friendly person. Even still to this day, the man still signs his fan mail, which is awesome. So I highly recommend, if you have some Richard Petty cards lying around, definitely consider sending a few out to him. He only signs 2 at a time. That's the most he ever signs, so don't send him like 12 or something, because you only get a couple back signed. But definitely worth adding his autograph to your collection if you're a sports fan. So Richard Petty's been raced from the 1950s all the way to the 1990s. Petty appeared in 1,184 races over a 35-year career for the NASCAR Cup Series. Over 1,100 races. He finished in the top 10 712 times. 200 times he won those races. So that tells you how dominant this driver was in his sport. Obviously, after he retired, he focused primarily on Petty Enterprises, which he still to this day. There are many drivers that have driven for Petty Enterprises throughout the years, some of the most up-and-coming drivers in the sport. It should be noted that he comes from a racing family. His father Lee raced, his brother Maurice raced, and also worked for many years in the sport. Maurice just recently passed away, so rest in peace, Maurice Petty. And he is the father of Kyle Petty, and he is the grandfather of Adam Petty, who was Kyle's son, who was tragically lost in a practice crash in May of 2000. Another cool, neat trivia thing about King Richard is he actually was in the movie Cars as well. So a very neat little cameo that he appeared in the Disney movie Cars in 2014. So I'm very happy to add Richard Petty to the collection. Obviously, I'm very happy to add Wally Dallenbach Jr. as well to the collection. And I'm very happy to also add DK Ulrich to the collection. Sorry about the glare there. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. I'll look forward to your comments below. Thanks.